welcome back to our U.S. election coverage studios, coming to you live from Victoria Island, where the U.S. mission has set up and to go ahead and also keep tabs with the elections as they play out in America. We're joined now by Dr. Oby Ezekwesili. Thank you for joining us this morning. As a matter of fact, always tempted to say evening, but it's morning.
It is morning.
But there's some very interesting things going on. But let's start with the process. We've seen how elections, I overheard someone saying, elections are going around, they're campaigning, they didn't close any borders, things are going on smoothly. Now, those are some of the things that we actually should have a look at and see how we can implement them here. But you think we're ready for that kind of thing?
I think we are ready. It's a matter of, are we committed? Because, in terms of readiness these days, you don't have to take the length of time that those that went ahead of you took to get to where they got to. Because these days, there is that level of acceleration in knowledge diffusion. So if we are able to adapt knowledge properly with commitment, we can set up a lot of the systems that enable you to have an election in a non-crazy way.
we see a lot of trust in this election, trust in the precincts, trust in the voting centers, people going in. Nobody's going in to vote twice. People are orderly, they cast their ballots and they walk away. Are we ready to run an institution based on trust and to run a process based on trust?
Well, trust is trust is social capital, and you've got to build it. We haven't built it. We have actually perhaps built it in the bridge. So the basis for distrust is legitimate. People know that there are no consequences for doing the wrong things. And so there is a tendency to proliferate the wrong things. And so people are saying, why should I assume that the good intention is what that next person is going to do? The likelihood of or the probability of they doing something that's not right by me is closer to 1 than to 0. So with that kind of a mindset, it's a trust deficit environment that we have. But that's not to say that you cannot then build on it. You can begin by at least removing from human discretion a lot of things that can be systematically done. There are processes in the election management that can be systematized. And the more that you can do that, then the human error and the human capacity for discretionary decisions that can imperil our systems would be reduced. We need to build toward that. And we actually need to frankly have a conversation about our political system and to say, how is it arranged to ensure that the citizen and their interests are at the center of every conversation that we have.
When is the right time to have this conversation?
I think a right time is often determined by the appetite of the populace. So for now, the populace are still comfortable to be marginal to the discussion of the state of our political development. And you don't blame people too much, right? Because we've come from this very strangulating system of governance that most of my generation knew. It was called military rule. So 2020, this is the longest cycle of democracy we've had, 17 years. The other cycles of democracy were the ones between when the elections of 1959 leading to independence, it terminated by 1966, right, with the war. The next time you ever had that again was 1979, terminated November 1983. If you added those two together, the average would be 5.5 years. Now, 5.5 years compared to 17 years, that's an amazing improvement. That's like a 300% improvement in terms of the longevity of democracy as a system of governance. So what that suggests to you is that we've got a total of, say, 20, in all, maybe 28 years of democracy compared to another
About 200 years.
So when you think of the militaristic way of a society not actually questioning or being permitted to question, you would understand why it is that our political development is not as fast and as mature as we would have it be. But I think that at some point we're going to have to face that reality that we're now a democracy and that democracies improve. Although what we've seen in America gives a reason for you to also know that it could go in the other direction.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that in a minute. But I'd like to backtrack a bit because we've experimented a bit. We had the parliamentary system, and then we had presidential system. And many wonder if at all we learned at that time. But now in this election, we've also seen that it's decentralized in America. Some states have paper ballots, some have a combination of the paper ballot and electronic, some have full-blown electronic. If we were to experiment, do you think that we can afford to make our mistakes and learn?
We need to be willing to make mistakes and be willing to own our mistakes. I think our greatest problem is the unwillingness to take ownership of our mistakes, and therefore we fail to learn from them. Because the whole idea of democracy and its maturation, when it goes from, when you swing from, say, military rule to transition into democracy, the idea is that it's a process. It's not an event. So it grows on you steadfastly. It is the process of democratization that leads to institution building. And institution building, it's about the change in the character and habits of not just the systems and the processes and the procedures, but in the character and the core values of the society and how it organizes itself. So sure, we could get to the point where we would say to ourselves, as part of the process of practicing democracy properly, so-called, there are certain things we need to think of differently, but to also be careful, because sometimes you find that decentralization ends up being decentralizing the chaos at the national level to the local level.
We see a developed society here that's trying to make a change. This is going to be one of the most historical elections America has ever had, because tonight it could elect its first female president, or as the Consul General said, it could elect its first political outsider. Either way, do you think America is ready?
America will always be ready for whatever comes its way. The thing, though, is that it's going to dramatically change a lot of things. If the election should go in the other direction of the person you called the outsider, you already know where my preference lies, so I need to be very clear about it. I would rather that we had the first female president in the White House, and that's because it's important that we should